You counted every calorie, tried every diet, spent hours in the gym, and still something's missing. You want more than just weight loss. You want your energy back. You want your confidence restored. You want a way of living that doesn't feel like punishment. Welcome to Master Your Metabolism, where we cut through the noise, ditch the fads, and give you a real plan to become the healthiest, strongest version of you. Hosted by our team of expert coaches with proven strategies, science-based tips, and real-life encouragement, not just to help you lose fat, but actually create that lifestyle that you love. You've tried everything. Now, let's try what actually works. This is your turning point. Let's go. Hey there, everybody. Welcome to this episode of Master Metabolism. I am here with Calvin Masters.
What's going on?
So we were going to talk today, guys, about competing and understanding what to think about if that is your goal and what comes before stage and some things to consider. So I'm going to go ahead and ask Calvin some questions and he's going to give some insight. And then if there are any other questions that we don't answer in this podcast that you guys have questions about, or if you'd like to do a call with Calvin, definitely put a comment below or find us on Instagram or our website that'll be listed in the show notes, and you can always set up a call and we can chat. So first and foremost, I always tell people that when you are going to commit to something like a prep, you want to make sure your body is in a healthy place. So Calvin, first thing right now, what we do with clients and what we have them do before prep or before going into a prep is to be getting labs. So can you explain a little bit why we do that and what the point is to get labs before prep?
Yeah, so the idea with prep is just to be as healthy as possible going into it. Just you want to be just top notch so that your body is ready to respond and release fat. Hormones are a huge, huge part of this. So you don't know when somebody comes to us, it may be a year before the show, it might be 6 months. We don't know 100% where they were before, what the stress was like, what they've been through. So we want to kind of see what's going on the inside and make sure that, blood sugar levels are in a good place. Is there an autoimmune that we don't know about? Whereas the liver enzymes, are they detoxing properly? All these things matter a lot metabolically. So when they're not in alignment or something's off, what can happen is you go into prep and then as things get stressful, they start to rear their ugly head at that point. So you start to run into fat loss resistance. And without having the labs, you're kind of throwing darts in the dark and kind of going off symptoms. But a lot of symptoms are very similar to different things. So if we kind of know ahead of time what's off, we can fix these things or work on fixing these things prior to the prep and get them as optimal as possible so that there's no issues during prep. So it's really important to understand when you're going into a prep that what you do prior to the prep, we call it the pre-prep to the prep, is actually just as important as a prep. And I think a lot of the mistakes people make is they don't check these things. They go in, they invest all this time and money and plan for it. And then they get 2 months in, they start running into issues. And it ends up being where their coach just drops calories very low and keeps pushing them and pushing them. And then all of a sudden they start holding water because they're inflamed. These are things we don't want our clients to have to go through. We want them to have the best experience possible. So we want to cross all the T's, dot the I's prior to prep to make sure that they're in a good place for it.
Yeah, which brings it to the point of where their calories are and things like that. So, when people get started with us, a lot of women especially are under eating, guys too. But, when you're under eating to begin with, can you explain a little bit as to why that can cause a problem of going into a prep?
Yes, like you said, this is something that's probably the most common thing that we see because people seem to typically live a little bit under what their maintenance calories is. And it's not for bad reasons. They just don't want to gain body fat. And that can be kind of a little bit of a sweet spot for some people that aren't competitors. It's a safe place. It gives them a little bit of wiggle room when they go out on the weekends, which they end up kind of going into a surplus anyway, but that's for another podcast. But what happens when your body adapts? So it's really important to understand that your body's like the perfect healing machine. So when you're in a calorie deficit, and you're in it for a prolonged period of time, your body senses that stress. A calorie deficit is a big stress to the body. And the more extreme it is, the more your body reacts to it. And what your body does as a response from this is your body tries to keep you alive. The same way, like if you have a cut, your body heals a cut. It wants to do the things to keep your body running and keep you moving and alive and healthy. So it wants to fix the issue of the deficit. It thinks you're in a famine, basically. So it's going to prepare you to stock fat, to keep you alive. So everything that's metabolic related starts to kind of hormone wise starts to downregulate so that you store fat easier. And so stress comes up, cortisol comes up and it starts to put fat into your midsection. And that's actually your body just storing fat there because it's trying to keep you alive. So when your body's constantly in that deficit, it is stress. So you're going to have those reactions. So very important prior to prep is to get your body out of that stress mode. So you want to be healthy, but you also want to be unstressed going into the prep. And by doing this, typically you want to have calories, at least maintenance calories, but ideally above. And the cool thing about the body is how it adapts. And the same way it adapts to lower calories, it will adapt to higher calories. So most times you can actually get your calories higher and build through your metabolism, increase what your maintenance calories be, your total daily energy expenditure, which is what your body needs to just breathe and,
Yeah.
grow hair and do all the things, plus your activity. So we call it your maintenance because that's the amount of calories that you would need to stay exactly the same. So ideally, we want to try to push that up. So we want to kind of build the tank for the calories to pull from, because the higher that tank is, the more calories we have to pull from. And I'm sure anybody who's ever thought about prep has probably heard some horror stories about calories getting down below 1,000 calories. There are girls having to do, an hour,
Hours of
sometimes two
cardio.
hours of cardio just to get stage lean. And it should not be that way. That can be avoided if you do the proper things prior to prep to avoid that. And so I can say that we've never taken anybody's calories below 1,000. Never have done that. And there's been times that we've seen the resistance and we've had to pull people out of prep. We had to make that hard choice because we know how that ends. And they're not going to be happy with the look. They're going to look depleted that day if you try to push it. They're not going to have a good experience. And why would you go through all this to walk away with a bad experience? So very important as a coach that we coach them through the beginning part. And a lot of people don't understand that you need to have that extra time before you go into it. They think they're just ready, the body fat's not too far away, but sometimes very close can be very far, when somebody's lean because of those reasons, because you have nowhere else to pull from. The calories are just too low.
And
So very important to get the calories up, get your body healthy.
yeah. And I think everybody is anxious to get that lean, right? Everybody wants to just drop body
Yeah.
fat, do all the things. But when you're in it and you're in a fat loss phase and you don't have the food, you get hungry and you get angry and really quick you want to come out of it. So if you think about, like you said, filling the tank. So if you have your calories high enough, you can do a cut and you'll still have a decent amount of food and your body will keep responding as long as you put things in like refeeds, diet breaks, and things like that. So if you are having only 1,200 calories, you can't really pull from there, right? But if you get your calories all the way up above 2,000, now you can cut to 17, 1650, 15, and you have more room to cut and also have time to, again, give your body breaks and refeeds.
Yeah. For females, I like to see 2,000 plus calories, depend on the size. If you have somebody that's 5 feet tall, I can go as low as 1,800, but I'm really going to try to push that to the 2,000 mark. I've had some girls go in nearly 3,000 calories before they go into the prep, which seems like a lot of calories, but if you do the things that you need to do right to get the calories there, it puts on very little body fat and just they are in a better place. And you just feel so much better in prep.
And again, it's just another stressor. So the higher your calories are, the less stress you have. And the more time that you have during the prep as well, which will bring me into the next point of when you're planning and thinking about doing a show. What are some things to consider about that time frame that, you know, people should think about when they're preparing?
Yeah, good question. So going into it, you want to think about the prep when you actually start into the prep. Think around 4 months to 5 months. There's the old school way was 3 months and you just crash and go in hard. I think, modern day we've learned a lot and decide, okay, well, that's just not really the best way to do things. Slow and easy when you go into prep. So, you want to have, you know, 4 or 5 months, to kind of work it down, massage the fat out. You don't want to squeeze it out. So considering that you have that time frame, it's what you want to make sure that you have kind of planned, for the year, that you don't have any vacations planned, like a
Cruises.
cruise. A cruise is not the thing you want to be on when you go into a prep that revolves around delicious foods and just being lazy and sitting at the pool and drinks. Not a thing you want to do in prep. Disney World, Now, I will say that people that are more matured in the sport can handle a lot of these things. Like I did have a guy that went on a 10-day cruise and then came back and competed a week later and got top 5, did great, and he was actually 72 years old. And so, you know, so you can do it. You just have to have
Really disciplined.
really discipline. Yeah. So, but I would definitely not for a first time competitor. You just want to reduce the variables of anything that can make it challenging for you. Don't set yourself up for failure. So when you're looking at that time frame, don't plan things that that are going to throw you off. Now, weddings, birthdays, those things are going to happen. You're going to get invited. You got to go because it's your brother or sister. no, Now we can work through those things as a coach with you because there's going to be life things that are going to happen. But if you are about to get a divorce, if you're selling the house and moving into a fixer upper, anything like that, that's going to take a lot of your attention and time, and can kind of know that you're going to be off your normal routine, those things throw you off on food. You forget to eat, or you end up overeating, or the choices aren't there. Those are all things that you want to think about going in, because if you could just have that time where you can focus on the prep, then you'll have a much, much better experience and a much better turnout, for the show. So that would be the main thing, is just not to try to, whatever you can, at least within your reach, what you can handle, try to make it as less distractions as possible during that
Yeah,
time.
because there's gonna be things like you said, there's gonna be weddings, there's gonna be people going out on the weekends, people that are social, that wanna go have wine and do the things, with their friends. But, it comes to that point that, competing is very different than a lifestyle and just wanting to get lean. You know, being in a competition, you are getting to, and it's an extreme sport, right? And you're getting to a leanness that is not healthy, that is supposed to be for a very short period of time. But you know, if you're gonna go out drinking, you're gonna go out to dinner, you're gonna be doing all the things, like, it just may not be the best option for you, because when you are in that final stages, like, there is no drinking, there is no going out to restaurants, like, you are going to have to control, like you said, all the variables, and when you're getting close to a show, those things just there's no leniency, so to speak.
Yeah, the thing that you want to remember with this is that with bodybuilding, I think a lot of people underestimate what it takes to get that lean. Like they've seen themselves lean, but when you go to an actual show and you see the competitors, you realize that's a whole different level of leanness, a completely different level of lean, to the point that it's not healthy. But keep in mind that you're healthy 90% of the year or 95% of the year. But when you get to that very end part of the prep and get that lean, that there's a short period where it's really not that healthy because your body doesn't want to be that lean. So that's why it fights you. You recover after. So that's why it's important to have a coach and not to go at it alone, because you want to understand how to do these things so your body is healthy again. But you do want to understand at the same time that these people are the leanest people in the world. Any sport, Olympians, leaner, and so you think of the extremity of that and what it takes to get to that point. You can't have alcohol. You have to watch sugar intake, you have to watch artificial
Correct?
sweeteners, chewing gum, you know? Chewing gum can throw somebody off because it could have artificial sweeteners in it. The sugars actually add up. Little things like that that you don't think about. So you have to be willing when you go into it to say, "Hey, I'm gonna be all in for this, and I'm gonna do it to get the best result I can get." But yeah, you have to understand that there is a certain amount of sacrifice for it to get to that point. And that's why so few are able to do it. But the ones that do it, it's just a feeling like you can't explain,
Yeah, because when
to
you've
get
made
there.
the sacrifices, that's what the show is. It is shown that you have made sacrifices, you are consistent, it's a 24/7 job, so when you get up on that stage, it does change you as a person. It makes you realize what you're truly capable of. I mean, a lot of people do this, like, 75 hard and all that, and that's great. And this is very similar. It gives you that that feeling of accomplishment when you're done, that nobody else experiences that type of dedication, when it comes to this, when they're just trying to, like, lose a little bit of weight, right? And lose a little bit of fat. And thinking about, different divisions in bodybuilding and when somebody is starting and how they determine which division that they want to enter.
Yeah, another great question. So a lot of this just comes down to your genetics, you know, what you are structurally built for. If it's somebody that has larger bones, a larger frame, maybe a little bit wider waist, for a male, that would be more bodybuilding. That's more of like the endomorph body type, just a larger person. Bodybuilding would probably be your thing. If you're a leaner person, that just somebody that just growing up just couldn't eat enough to get them put on any size, I would say that men's physique would be the thing to go into first. Although with the way that bodybuilding is, it does progressively get bigger and bigger. So, that something to consider, that you do have to add a decent amount of muscle, but you still want to go where you're structurally built. Men's physique is going to be wide shoulders, small waist. Bodybuilding ideally is that, but it's kind of grown into just monsters. So it's really just big guys that can just put on mega mass and do that. And then they have classic physique, which kind of meets them in the middle. They brought back the old school type of bodybuilding that was more aesthetic, smaller waist, wider back and shoulders, and just, so that's more of a mesomorph type build, and then for females, you have bikini and, fit model, which is more for the leaner women, ones that it used to be that with bikini, they didn't have to have a lot of muscle. Nowadays, these women are carrying a lot of muscle in bikini. And that's why they brought in fit model, which is great. So it opens the door up to make things more attainable for these females and stay natural, So now when you progress out of bikini, there's figure, there's women's physique, and, you know, so these are going to be a little bit more muscle for these women, especially women's physique, but it is,
And figures
you know,
more.
you'll have to you have to be able to put on some muscle to be able to do those divisions where bikini, most women can grow into it. But again, if you have a larger female, bikini might not be the thing. Even though it could be at one point was considered entry level, you still want to have the actual bone structure to kind of go into that one. Now they also have wellness, which came out back in 2020, and they brought that in. They were doing it overseas for a while and brought it into America. I was really happy to see that one because basically it's kind of like the upper body resembles bikini a lot, wide shoulders, small waist, but the legs, um, a lot of women just by nature just naturally have larger legs. They call them soccer legs. So this division kind of caters to that, which I thought was great because there's so many women that just couldn't dial down those legs, but didn't want to become women's physique or
Right.
bodybuilding. So they still wanted to have that. And that's become one of the big categories. So there is something kind of in there for everybody.
Yep. Yeah. And it's definitely something that you can kind of grow into. Like usually, starting a woman starting out that has never done it before, that really just wants to get her feet wet, like fit model would be a great start, or bikini. And then you start really enjoying putting on muscle, and then you can always progress. And there are ways that, I mean, there are people that cross over and do
Mm,
more than one type of category. And for those that have never competed before, understanding that there are different categories that you can compete in based on age. So you could do masters if you're older, over 35. You could do different divisions according to height, which would be open. So you're basically going against anyone the same height. So when I did mine, I'm going against 18-year-old or 20-year-old girls, that are just happen to be shorties.
well, you did all right, though. You did all right.
And then
Listen, I was proud
And
of you.
then you also have 2 categories from the beginning, that you have true novice if you've never competed before, that is one category you can go into, and you have, novice, which you have never won first place. So, when people go into a show, understanding that it is based on your body type, but it also, gives you some flexibility that you can, run some different types of divisions so you can feel comfortable. So, me, I felt more comfortable in the beginning when I was competing against people my own age, but now these 50-year-old women are coming in like monsters as well. So,
Yeah. Yeah,
there's
so
that.
it is like she said, you can go in and you can always change divisions and grow into a different one. If you love the sport like I do, I'm in men's physique now, and I would love to progress in the classic. If I can do that in my old age. I'm gonna keep trying to go for it, but, But there is opportunity to do that. So it's kind of like you can always set the goal even higher. That's what I love about it. This is very much it's a self-improvement sport.
Yes.
That's one way you have to kind of look at it. If you're chasing number one all the time, you're going to be very disappointed. Very disappointed. This may not be the sport for you if you get hurt by not winning, because this is different than other sports in the sense that, when you play football or soccer or anything, you can watch videos, you can see the other team, you can plan for it. You strategize how we're going to beat this. And the thing with bodybuilding, you're going to show up that day and you don't know who's going to be on the stage with you. You have no idea. So you could know everybody locally that's been doing the shows over and over again. And then all of a sudden you have a guy that just comes in and he's just a monster, and it is what it is. So you got to stay focused and remind yourself that the ultimate goal and the strategy that I used to eventually turn pro was just improve from show to show. As long as you improve yourself from show to show, you have your target of what you need to work on. Go for that. That's your win right away. And you will be winning shows if you follow that like that. But if you come in and it's your first time, it's going to be hard to win a show in the first time that you step on stage. It's not impossible, but you don't want to come in setting yourself up for disappointment because you don't maybe fully understand that anybody can show up. You don't always know how the judges are going to feel that day. If it's bikini, it can be subjective, So if the females get up there and the majority of them are a little softer, and then you came in completely shredded down, but you're standing out because you're shredded down, you might not place as well even though technically you're more conditioned than the other girls, or vice versa. This can happen. So I will say, under the same breath, that these shows, the promoters, everybody involved, really, really want every single person to have a great time. They really do, full heartedly. They want to, and it's important to understand that they're doing everything they can, that everybody does, but they can't control the outcome. They can't control how many people are going to be at the show. They can't control the condition that they come in. The judges just have to do the judges have a tough job. Go easy on those guys. People get so mad at the judges, but listen, it's not an easy job. You have to get up there and you have to look at all the different variables of what's going on, and you have to pick who's going to win, who's going to get top 5. And that's not an easy thing to do. So it's just very important to walk in feeling like you won. And the way that you achieve that is that you give your best in that prep and really focus and try to improve yourself. If you are improved and you look better, you feel better than you did the previous show, you've already won. You've already won. Whatever happens on that's the icing on the cake, So go in and just try to enjoy it, and you'll learn to love it the same way that I did. I think I've done 23 shows. I mean, you can see some things behind me. So I've been busy, but I do that because I love it, but I was never chasing the win. I wanted to win, but I understood what it would take to get there. I knew that it would take time.
And definitely, like you said, that somebody up on that stage, it could be your first show, but somebody on that stage has been competing for 10 years,
Right.
right?
Yes.
You have two totally different individuals. And just like if you start working at a job, you're not going to expect to be the same level as somebody who has been working that same job for 10 years. So it's about going there. The first time is just knowing that you gave everything that you could to that prep. And prep is tough. So if you know you got on that stage and you did all the things, you walk on that stage confident because you know you put in the work. And, next time, now you have a goal. Now you know what it looks like. Now you know what it feels like. And now it just kind of sets the bar, like you said. So you just keep on improving and really working on you, because if you keep improving, that's absolutely the ultimate goal. And, something else to kind of keep in mind is when you're getting started, you know, knowing how to do the prep, right? Knowing how to track your foods, how to swap out different foods, how to learn how to eat, how to navigate through certain times. And that is a skill. That is something that takes time to learn. It's not just everybody, you hand them a meal plan and that, okay, now I'll just follow it. Like, it's really important to understand how to track macros, how to change things around, because that is something that you're going to need to learn. Like, what if, you happen to be somewhere and you forgot your lunch? You're going to have to kind of improvise and find the things and understand how to do things in order to just stick to the plan.
Yeah. I would say I have quite a few people that come up to me that are in really good shape, right? And want to compete. They've been told you should compete, you look great. But then I ask, have you ever tracked food before? They're like, no, I don't need to do that. Sometimes I track my
Yes.
protein. You're not ready to go into prep. You're not ready to go into prep. You need to have a good understanding of food and how to manage it. You have to be able to meal prep, to a certain point. There is ways around that, but it will make it a whole lot easier if you do the meal prepping. But you need to understand portion sizes and how critical it is to get those portion sizes right. This is where a lot of people screw up, because they don't understand how important that is, especially when your coach is watching how your body's responding and we're trusting that you're eating what we're having you eat. And we're basing our next adjustment off of that. So if you're not being truthful, or if you're not hitting your mark because you don't are doing it right, we're going to give you bad information. We're going to give you bad adjustments. No, and then you're going to go and you're going to tell somebody, well, he's not a very good coach, but you have to be coachable, to have, your coach do their job. So understanding food and being able to do that on a consistent basis, and understand it is extra work in your day. It takes time to do it, but the food is going to be 80% of your outcome. If you don't get the food right, you are not out training. I don't care how much cardio you do. You're not getting stage lean. You're not going to have the look that you want to have. It just is what it is. So you have to have the food. You have to be a pro at it. So I need to know that before somebody goes into the prep. So we need to have time to work with them so that I can see these things, and I can see that they have that under control, and that they're logging their foods, and that I can see the amounts, and I see that they're eating. I understand when they deviate, what their deviations are. Coming up on that off season when I'm learning, that's when I invite mistakes in. I want to see mistakes because I want to see how your body responds from it. During prep is not the time to be doing that. We need to know all that before you go in. If your body doesn't do sweet potatoes well, I don't want to find out in
And then
prep.
you're like,
When we're halfway through it, when we're chasing ghosts, trying to figure out, well, why is she so inflamed? Oh, it's the sweet potatoes. Okay. Well, those things we want to find out before. So that matters a lot with that. The other thing that kind of goes a little bit hand in hand with that is your discipline to what you're doing, knowing that you're getting the workouts in, knowing that you're getting the cardio in. I know some people just skip the workout that day. That's not something you're going to do in prep. That's not something. This is something you need to stay consistent with. The cardio's got to be there for the same reasons with the food. Is I need to know how to adjust. So if cardio is not being done properly, and then you know, I got to turn it up, because I think that that's not enough. You could end up having to do a lot of cardio, man, and we try to avoid that like impossible. We try to keep that cardio as low as we can because we don't want to add that extra stress. So we just want to kind of stick with things. So you just want to know that there's going to be days you don't feel like training. There's going to be days you don't feel like doing cardio. You got to find a way to do it. You have to find a way to do it. And if you don't, if you miss it, you need to let your coach know, whether it's me, if it's another coach, you need to let them know. If your food's off, you need to let your coach know. If you had a drink somewhere, you need to let your coach know. We're not here to get mad at you. We're here to problem solve and get you from point A to point B as efficiently and best as we can. So those things are very important. And the other thing too is check-ins. Um, Check-ins should be on time. If I see that a person doesn't check in on check-in day, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to question how serious they are towards the prep.
correct.
And well, if they can't check in when they know it's their check-in day, I'm going to say, well, if they're like that, well, how tight are
What
they
else
with the
can I say?
food? How tight are they with these other things? And I'm starting, which is a bad feeling, to lose trust, you know, and you got to have trust with your coach. You have to have that. That's an important component. But I lose that when I see that I'm not getting check-ins, or if I do the check-in and then you respond 3 days later. you know, these check-ins are time efficient. I'm expecting that it's going to be that day. By the end of the night, if it's a long day, I may not get to the check-in until 7 o'clock at night. So I understand if I get a reply back the next day, that's totally fine. If it's 3 days later, I'm thinking, okay, this person might not be ready to be in prep and do this sort of thing, because it does require that discipline, that hard set discipline.
But there's what you said, right? So as a coach, you are working until 7:30, 8 o'clock at night because you are moving through these clients. And even though you're tired and you really don't feel like doing check-ins that late, you're taking the time and making sure they happen. So you're kind of providing that same model. And, people look at things and they're just like, well, I didn't have time to do this. When you go into your job, you're going to have your plan for the day. You know what's going to be expected. You know what you need. You know what you have to take with you. This is another job because it is something, like you said, that requires your food, your training, and the last thing that I'm about to bring up is stress management and sleep, that people don't realize how important it is. And all of these aspects, again, when you jump on that stage, part of jumping on that stage and feeling confident is knowing everything was 100%. And if it wasn't, that it was clearly communicated. So there was time to adjust and fix the plan in order to compensate for something that might have happened or gone wrong. So I wanted to talk about sleep and why that is so important during prep.
Yeah, sleep is probably next to food one of the most important things you can do in prep to be able to be successful. There's been plenty of studies showing how lack of sleep affects body composition. It affects muscle, recovery. It affects how you burn fat. You're more prone to gain fat if you're getting less than 7 hours sleep. It's just a fact.
Yep.
So cortisol does come up, lack of sleep. And when cortisol is coming up, you're spilling blood sugars into the system. You might as well be eating candy bars.
Yep.
I think you'd probably much rather be
And
eating
you'll
candy
want
bars than
if
yeah,
you're not sleeping. You're gonna want candy bars because your satiety hormones and your hunger hormones are gonna get dysregulated if you're not getting
yeah,
that sleep.
yeah. If you're a person that craves carbs late at night, like when you're about to go to bed, the reason why that's happening is because your body is tired and it's trying to find energy. So it's telling your brain, go get some carbs. We need to eat some carbs because we need energy. So that's your cue right there that you're already burning the candle at both ends. If you're at that point of getting to craving carbs, you're probably lacking sleep. You probably need more sleep than what you're getting. And once cortisol comes up, I guess in most cases, but a lot of cases when people have high cortisol, it's because sleep apnea or lack of sleep, if there's obviously life stressors, but these are a big part on it. And it is something that has to be worked on. So if you're getting 4 to 5 hours sleep a night,
Not prep.
you might not be able to do it. I'll tell you a story. I have a guy right now that has been competing for some years, and he came with me a few years ago, a couple years ago actually, and everything was great. And then this last year, he took on a different job. They bought a house, mortgage went up, so he took on this other job, and he's sleeping 3 4 hours a night. And we we tried to work through it last year, and his body was just is unresponsive and just was putting fat on no matter what we did. And it was just no way around it. Just no way around. His labs weren't that bad. His labs were not anywhere near what you would expect to see with him having this issue. But the lack of sleep made it nearly impossible for him to lose weight. And if he did lose a little bit of weight, it was coming right back. And so, even in the reverse, to bring calories back up, now we have the challenge of him not gaining weight in the reverse because of stress, because of lack of sleep. So, it is a huge, huge impact. And so very important. I do understand that a lot of people have kids and work, and you're not going to get 8 hours sleep. You know, you can get a little bit less, but if it's much lower than 7 hours, I'm going to tell you that it's going to be an issue. It's going to be. Yeah, it
And
will.
you're just gonna be running and frustrated, right? You're gonna do all the other things, and you can't check those boxes, and then your body stops responding, and it's hard because, like you said, when you're getting deep into prep, it may work in the beginning, but once you start getting low, your body does not want to be that lean. It is going to fight, and that sleep, when you are trying to do that at the very end, it's gonna be nearly impossible, and why go through all of that only to be so frustrated at the very end?
Yeah, it's easy to lose 5 10 pounds no matter what the state is. But when your body gets below 10% body fat, for men, and probably I'd say even 14% for women,
And yeah,
it starts to become a little bit more challenging. Your body doesn't want to let that go. And that's where you start to see the effects of stress really kick in because your body's stressed. So if there's compounded stress from outside sources, that's where you'll see the issues. And what really kind of sucks about that is you've got so much time invested in this already. You've already sacrificed, you've already done all the things. And here you are, coming
weeks.
towards the finish line and your body's like, nope, not today, not today.
Like
And
going
that's when
to
you
a
see the
marathon and
water retention come.
kicked out. Having your knee kicked out on mile 24 of a marathon.
Yeah.
It's not nice. It's not nice.
No, it's not. It's not. And it's a hard thing to see happen when you're a coach and you try to work around it, and but it's very difficult to battle that,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
so it's
And you
something to kind of
also
consider.
that those health issues, it won't just happen from prep. You push hard enough. I've seen coaches do it. We've had clients come to us from other coaches that tried to push them through it and they wind up losing their cycle. They wind up with health issues that take months to fix. And sometimes they can't fix them depending on how long they were in that state. So,
Yeah, it can take a
last
year. For females, it can take a year if they get hit hard enough, and that's a tough thing to swallow because they have to gain weight to be able to fix the issues. You can't be focused on trying to lose weight when you're trying to fix adrenals. It just doesn't work. It just doesn't work. But you have to fix those adrenals if you want to lose weight again. So that's the side, but that can all be prevented, and should never be an issue.
if you did
But
things the right way when you started.
right, right.
All right. So, last to wrap this up is mindset. So,
Hmm,
when you are going in, again, we mentioned the sacrifices, we mentioned having to give up things that you enjoy, having to look at things very differently when you're in a prep and as well as winning. So, talk a little bit about, hungry because it's going to happen. You're going to be hungry, but how you want to look at things when you're in that state.
yeah, mindset, boy, that's that is a big one. That's the thing that's gonna carry you through it, because it's gonna get hard. No matter how much you prep to go into prep, you're still gonna sacrifice, to a certain degree. It just depends how much you have to deal with. So, having, an optimistic mindset, and just kind of looking at it like I'll say, like, for me, when I would look at prep is like I would go into it and it's kind of like me taking the ship to the island and then just burning the ship down, like this is it. Let's make it happen. We got to do it. There's no turning back. You go in, and so you have to have that mindset. It helps a lot to have a coach to go through this, because you're going to struggle. There's going to be times there could be tears, when you get closer, whether it's because it's hard or whether it's because you might not be where you want to be, or your mind's playing tricks on you, and everybody has that body dysmorphia. There's
Absolutely.
so many things. So it's good to have communication with your coach. Let us know, if you're having these issues. We got to talk it through. We got to get you through it. And you'll realize that it's not just you, it's so many people, and it's expected. That's why we have a mindset coach in our team that's phenomenal. She's a lifesaver. And so we have her right there, when something happens, because, I'm a good coach, but I'm not always knowing the right things to say. Sometimes I'm going to tell you, just push through it. Just push through it. Maybe Amanda's got something nicer to say with it, but there's a point with tough love. There's a point where I have to tell you the facts and I can't sugarcoat it. But the mindset that you want to have going into it is that you're going to do it. If you give yourself an out, if you are constantly looking to try to find ways to kind of cheat it a little bit, do that to make it easier instead of just saying, you know what, I'm in this, I'm doing it, and I'm going to just embrace the suck.
Yeah.
That's so important to go in. In the first few shows will seem hard because it's a big change. But as you mature into it and as you progress, you kind of, every time that you challenge yourself, let's put it this way, every time that you face a fear, every time you take on something that you know is hard, you grow. You just grow from it. Mentally, you grow, I would say physically in a sense. You grow from it, especially in bodybuilding, but there's so much growth that comes from it. So it's like the more you do it, the better you get at it, and
More
you have to
confidence
keep
you
that in
have in
mind.
yourself that you can do really hard things,
You can do
you
hard
know?
things. It
You
carries outside of bodybuilding.
absolutely.
That's one of the big reasons why I became a bodybuilding coach. One was to challenge myself to be able to get people to peak by a certain time, by a certain hour of the day on a certain day. I'm thinking, well, if I can do that, what can I do for all my lifestyle clients? So that was the initial draw to get into it, but it's so much more. And why I use, you know, bodybuilding as a tool it's like a carrot. to dangle and give somebody something to work for so that they can actually see what they're actually truly capable of, because anybody can do it. But like Brooke said, you have to have the mindset. You just have to plan. You just have to do the steps that it takes to get there. And now don't allow yourself to quit. Go in, just know that you can do it, and you're going to get to the finish line, and you're going to see yourself in a way that I promise you, you've never seen yourself like before. And it's going to change you, like she said, even that, but even stepping on stage, and seeing the crowd cheering for you, because they are going to cheer for you, because everybody in that crowd, they want, they're looking at you like, wow, like
Never do that.
you're a celebrity that day. You are on the stage and they want to do, in your mind, you're probably telling yourself, oh my gosh, I look worse than everybody. They're all lean, but you actually look great. And you're going to get on stage and the crowd's going to let you know that, which is awesome. So the whole experience is worth it, but it comes with work, and it comes, there's a price to pay to get there. But by doing that, you're growing, it's going to make you be able to achieve, I think, more in life. It did wonders, for us, and business wise and everything. We understood that, okay, well, we can achieve this. We just got to cut the ties and just say, we're going to make this happen no matter what. Same mentality, same mentality. And it's just changed so much in the last 10 years for us because of that. So I'm grateful of it. So my mindset going in to any prep, and also, I've said this before, is it's a privilege. It's a privilege to be able to do that, because I know that, okay, well, I'm hungry right now, right? I mean, not at this moment, I'm post show, but when I'm in prep, I'm hungry. I'm not hungry now. I've been doing some eating, but I know that I have food in the house. If I'm not going to die, I know that I have meals planned. This is not my last meal today. So I might be hungry, but there's going to be another meal, right? And I know that I'm doing this as a choice. I'm doing this to challenge myself. So it's not going to do me any good to go in there and grab out cheese puffs or whatever and eat those. It's not going to do me any good. It's stealing from me, it's stealing from my experience. So I look at that as, this is a privilege, because I don't have to be doing this. I can do this. This is something I can do. I'm in a place in my life that I can actually do this. And I'm grateful for that. So I'm not going to take advantage of it. I'm not going to, or it's going to be, I'm going to own it, fully, And so it's kind of having that thought process of saying, okay, I'm doing this for me, nobody else. So there's no cheating. There's giving my best. I'm going to see what I can do. And then I'm going to do better after that. And then after that, I'm going to do better. And that's where it is. That's where the magic is.
Yeah. And I've seen it with so many people that start and they're not even sure they can do it. And when they get through it and they get to that point, it is a feeling that you cannot describe. It is a feeling that nothing else will replace, because it is that consistency, that time, that effort, that push that, like you said, no matter what happens, I'm going to do it. I am going to be successful. And when you say you will, and you don't think about the time right now of what you're feeling, but you constantly think about that end goal. Think about what I look like on stage. And I tell everybody, if you are consistent when you get on stage, when you get to that point, that's where you have that feeling of, I'm good. No matter what happens, it happens, because I know I did all the things. Now this is just the show. This is just the finish line, right? And every step of that marathon I've done. And some of them I might have fallen and gotten back up, but I still made sure that I always got up that next day and, made sure that I did all the things just like I would at my job. It was a priority for me. So sometimes contest prep isn't, for people getting started, but once you do start seeing changes in your body and you start being consistent, that's where you say, hey, you know what? I like what's happening. I want to do a little bit more. Cool. Let's try to, go into something like a little bit more strict and,
Yeah.
take more time and more effort.
Yeah. And you want to chase the hard, I mean, that's the thing. And so when you're feeling hunger, when you're in a cut, you know, if you're in a prep cut, anything, hunger, I have people that say this on check-in. They're like, well, I'm feeling hungry. Like, well, hunger is a sign that you're burning calories. If you're not hungry, I'm concerned if you're in a cut, because that means you're really not burning much, And so you want to feel a sense of hunger, but you want to associate that hunger with progress, and understand that this hunger, like, that's how I base my own adjustments when I prep myself, is based on my hunger. if I'm not hungry, mm, I'm cutting calories. I'm gonna cut to the point that I know that I need to be hungry, and I'm gonna feel that, and as the days when I feel that hunger kick in, you'll know it when it happens. You're gonna have a day that all of a sudden you're really hungry and you just wanna give in. Get ready, that's gonna be your biggest drop that week. You're about to drop about a pound or 2, and it's gonna come out that next day. So, you know that, you learn that in time, and so you kind of invite it in, in a sense that and you feel that hunger, now things are moving, now things are going, "Let's go, let's do this." So that's something you wanna keep in mind with it, is that that's part of it, but there's definitely different levels to hunger. There is extreme hunger, and that's not what you want either because you can't function, you can't do your job, so there's certain levels to it, but it is part of the deal, and that's whether you're competing or not. When you go into a cut, there's gonna be a certain level of discomfort because you're not giving your body enough calories for what it needs to be doing, and that's how you create a deficit. And your body's a little pissed, and it is like, "Okay, I'm making these sounds in your stomach because I want you to eat, but you're not eating, so let's turn it up?" So that's calories burn, and so, you wanna keep that in mind. Another big thing that we haven't touched on yet that I think is super important is that after the show, this
Yes.
is extremely important. Extremely important. This is something that's not talked about a lot, but should be upfront and understood before you go into it, is that you need to reverse out of that show. So when you go into the show, your metabolism is going to downregulate. That's kind of like what touched on a little bit before about how when food comes down, it's a stress and your body adapts by lowering your metabolic rate. This is going to happen when you go into prep just the same way. There is ways around it. You do wanna put refeeds in there. You do wanna put a diet break in there, so that's why I say open that prep tunnel, expand it so it's not so bad so you can put refeeds in, maybe 2 a week, 1 to 2 a week. Diet breaks when they're needed, when your body's stressed, especially as a female. I have taken girls a month out of the show and put their calories up to 2,250 and have um, a certain meal plan that I put together that I know they're actually gonna lose weight in that, but it's a lot of carbs, it's a lot of fats. You would never think they were gonna drop weight, but we drop that cortisol, we get the inflammation out, and we go back in. So, there's a lot of different ways to go about it, but if you don't give yourself enough time, to do that prep and you're pushing, you don't always have time if you have an issue like that to bring that recovery in to keep things going, and that's extremely important, especially for females. Guys, we're a little bit easier, we're simple, but we need it sometimes too. A lot of my guys are doing 2 refeeds a week, and they just crush it from that. They hold fullness. Refeeds are gonna help you hold into more muscle, and this has actually been scientifically proven by Bill Campbell with the Matador study. You're gonna hold on to more muscle, you're gonna burn around the same body fat. I would argue probably more because I see people drop in, at least my experience, quicker when you give that refeed at the right time. And that's why it's so important to be honest with your coach to where I see how your body responds because that tells me I know when I can give you that refeed that it's going to work, rather than just saying, hey, just 1 refeed a week on the same day, we can do this. We can keep things going if we do it right, so those things are really important. But coming out of it, when you come out of the show, things to expect, especially if your calories get pretty low, is that you're gonna be hungry. Your leptin, ghrelin hormone are not regular, so that your hunger and satiety hormones, so we have to fix that, and some women, in some cases, can lose their cycle, can lose their period, from the stress, and so we wanna get that back as soon as possible. So there are things that we need to do as we reverse you up and increase calories. I have a tendency now, I've learned over the years to reverse competitors out a little bit faster. With lifestyle, reverse them out so they continue to lose weight. Well, a competitor doesn't have any more weight to lose. So we want to bring that up and get you back up to maintenance as quickly as possible without gaining too much fat. That's the key. But we need to get you healthy. We need to get your hormones back up. We need to get your adrenals back up. We need to get you where you're not miserable, So
And
you
just to give
have
people an idea of like what when they come out, like they're obviously not gonna stay stage lean, but what is a good gauge of like a successful reverse? Like how much body fat or how much weight should they put on when they're coming out and get back up to their maintenance calories?
Yeah, I've had, I had a few people last year that came out and went up to maintenance and above, and body fat wise, they were very similar. They looked like they were probably a month out from competing, all the way back up to maintenance calories. I mean, that's six pack, that's veins coming out of the abs, all the way up to maintenance, you know. And so that can happen. You do want to put some fat on. This is very important to understand this. Stage lean is not a healthy place to be. It's extreme, but it's for a very short period of time. That's important to understand. So you got to come out of that. You don't want to stay there because your body will retaliate from that. So you want to have a little bit of it. So as soon as you get a little bit of fat back in that adipose tissue, that's when hormones start to regulate again. But until you do that, you're going to be very hungry because that leptin and ghrelin is not going to regulate until it starts to get a little bit of fat in. So you want a little bit in. Now, another thing too is when you're you're going to be depleted, you know, of carbs. And so carbs, glycogen goes into your muscle belly that it fills all the stores in your body, you know, brain, your liver, your muscles. That's water, and that weighs more than fat. So as you're reversing up, we're using predominantly carbs. We have your protein. Your protein's already there. The fat comes up to a decent level, but not too much right out the gate. We just went high enough so we can restore your testosterone, adrenals. But we bring the carbs in mainly because carbs gets that metabolism going again. That's what sets that leptin hormone up and starts to regulate the gatekeeper of fat. So I've seen April was a great example. You know, she's 5'7". She gained 11 pounds from her show, but she was one of the people I was talking about that looked like she could just
Exactly the
hop back
same.
on stage. So you're like, well, where did that weight go? You know, it was the glycogen going back into the stores. So the weight on the scale isn't very misleading in a reverse, any reverse, but especially coming out from the show. So you don't want to let that freak you out. You know, you just have to kind of trust the process a little bit. But I can't say this enough. I would treat this reverse as if it was a prep as well,
Right. But
because
the prep isn't the finish line. The show is not the
right,
finish line.
what can screw that reverse up and make not so nice results, because you need to understand that when your metabolism comes down, if you jump back out and you're eating pizza again, you're eating burgers, and you're going out drinking, one, your gut's going to be jacked up. You are going to have gut issues. Now you got to fix gut issues. You are going to put in fat very quickly. I've seen competitors come out and gain 10 pounds in a week, 20 pounds in 2 weeks, you know, from doing this. And that's like, man, all that work to go into this to gain that back like that. I don't think any of them were happy, right? So that can happen. So you want to understand that coming out. So you will be able to go, like, after the show, go have your meal. And I usually tell people the next day, don't track, go eat some foods that you enjoy, but don't go off the rails. Just eat some
Have
foods and
20
have a
plates,
little extra, be a
2
human.
full pizzas.
And then that next week, we're lightly touching back into it. But at the same time, I brought the calories up at this point. It depended on the person. I'll probably throw a refeed in there or even a free meal. Depends on the person. If somebody has really big cravings, and I know they had that, if I don't give them some of those foods and that reverse, you know they're going to binge. They're going for it. They're going to do it. So I have to do everything I can to make things run as efficiently as possible. So it might be a free meal, but I have to give them guidelines, you know, and say, okay, we'll have the burger and fries, but don't have the chocolate sundae after and the appetizer. Well, let's
And the
build into that first, right? And start getting you up. And so there's different ways, and we try really hard to make that reverse as easy as possible for them. But you have to understand it, especially if you want to be good in the sport, you can't blow it out in that reverse. You got to come up and you got to get back to that maintenance as quickly as possible. One, so for health reasons, you know, to get back, the hormones are up. The other is progress, you know, building, because what I like to do after the show is switch focus. If I know there's not another show lined up and they're about to go into the improvement season, we switch focus on what we're doing. So, you know, the focus shouldn't be to stay super lean all year. It's okay to have a little bit of fat on you, but still look like a competitor. You want to look year round like you are a competitor. If you're not, you went a little too far, to be completely honest. So I would say, to answer your question, it's kind of a tough one to say how much weight because it's kind of height based. But I would say you should, for a guy, still be able to see your abs to a certain degree. For females, what would be a good thing? And I would still like to see a little bit of definition on the body, but definitely not cellulite, because one thing you want to consider is when you're going into prep, you only want to have so much body fat that you got to get off. So for a female, I would say somewhere in the range of 10 pounds to 15 pounds. If you're going more than 15 pounds, we may have to do a mini cut before we go into prep. So you want to think of your stage weight, what that is. That would technically be your lean body mass, about 10 to 15 pounds above that. Now, again, if I get a girl that's 6 feet tall and a girl that's 5 feet tall, that may vary a little bit.
Yeah.
But for guys, I like to see that somewhere in the range of 20 pounds, you know, going a little bit above 20. Some guys can get away with it, it depends on the height, but somewhere in that range. And that's plenty of extra fat to keep your body healthy. And if you do that reverse right, you're going to look great. You're still going to see abs. You're going to look like a competitor year round, but you're going to make progress. Your body's going to be very anabolic coming out because all the receptors are going to be firing off. It's going to take in nutrients like nobody's business, and you're going to make killer progress coming off of that show. My competitors look better and better and better each show. I should have Brett on one time. He's a great example of a ectomorph, very, very lean guy we had to add muscle on it at 54 years old, naturally, and to show his transformation, but he was in and out of shows, but it's the way that we did it with him that now his calories sit year round around 3,400 calories. And he can walk onto a show. He stays that lean now, and just looks freaking phenomenal.
But he's
The
very strict. He follows the plan, and he consistently is training, consistently prepping his food, consistently doing all the things. So just like anything else, you kind of get out what you put in. So, you work so hard to be able to get to stage, you want to stay looking like a competitor when you come out. So that's what I tell everyone. The show is the show. Great. That's what we're shooting for. But keeping in mind the next goal is going to be sticking with the reverse till you get there. And I tell people, like, sometimes set another goal, like in a couple of months, do a
Mhm.
photo shoot
Yep.
because that'll keep you. It's that end goal. A lot of people are just goal driven. So having something
Yeah.
else to work for after that reverse is something that helps a
Yeah.
lot.
That's critical actually. And I think most people that do competitions are goal driven people.
Absolutely.
For me, when I came out personally, I would switch focus right away into strength gains. you know, doing what I have to do. And I would have my punch list of what needs to be improved after talking with the judges and my own visual. I would look at the lineup. How did I compare in the lineup? What areas do I think I need to improve? And that would be my target. So for me, that was all I needed because there is anybody that's been a runner, triathlete, anything like that, somebody that does competitions like that you build up for bodybuilding, you've probably experienced when the show's over a little bit of depression, you know, and this is real. You go because now you spent the last, 3 to 5 to 6 months preparing for this thing and excited, but also wanting it over, at the same time. But then you do it and you're like, well, now what? Now what? And you have that feeling of kind of being lost. You need to catch that right out of the gate and switch that mindset. And you need to be like, all right, we're going to do this. We're going to do this. We're going to do this and have that plan laid into place. We're building those things. So you're still going after that target. You're still going after that thing that's going to motivate you, but it's a different thought process of how you're doing it. It's not a timeline, but it's more of a visual thing. It's more of, okay, well, this show is next year at this point. We need to improve this. We need to improve this. And we're going for it. And I've seen some crazy, crazy improvements from show to show. So take that off season seriously. If you're going into that off season, you're blowing it out, go have some fun, be normal, but if you want to be a competitor and be good at competing, you have to have a certain, set some barriers, on how crazy you're going to get during that time. But as long as you're hitting the gym and you're getting the food in, there's going to be some flexibility, on the off season. I'm not going to lie. You can have a little bit of slop here and there, but control it, you know, and that's the thing to remember. But if it's a one-off thing and this is a bucket list thing, stick to that reverse, as close as you can, and you will be so freaking happy when you
Yep.
get up to those high calories and you still look phenomenal. And, just send me a Christmas card. We're cool, you know? So that's what
All right,
so
guys.
just
I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up here. Thank you so much for joining us. I hope you guys got some value from this episode. If you would not mind by giving us a review, we would truly appreciate it. And if there are any other topics that you would like us to share, drop them in the comments and we'll speak to you guys soon.
all right. Bye-bye.
Thanks for tuning in to Master Your Metabolism. If you found value in today's episode, it would mean the world to us if you'd hit subscribe and share this episode with someone who could use a little guidance in their health journey. Ready to take the next step? Head over to www.mastersfitnesscoaching.com and you can book a free call right from the site so we can chat about your goals and how we can help support you. Don't forget to join our Facebook group where we're sharing coaching tips, support, and tricks to help keep you on track and continue making progress. You don't have to do this alone. We're here to walk with you every step of the way. Until next time, stay consistent, stay kind to yourself, and keep mastering your metabolism. Let's do this together.